it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, today I have a video on heat embossing with embossing folders, which is just another way that we can stretch the use of these gorgeous embossing folders. Now I'm going to show you a couple of different versions of this. The first one here, I'm using Fanciful flowers. This is a 3D embossing folder, but honestly it probably works best on just the normal ones. However, it works perfectly fine with these, and anything that has fine detail and things is going to work perfectly. Now you can choose either side. Obviously one, you're going to get the opposite of the other, and you can just explore and try out both of them and see which one you like best. I'm taking an embossing ink pad, this one happens to be the Forte one, and gently gliding this over top of the design. So I am touching the plastic, definitely not pressing down hard, just making sure I get all of the areas covered. I do not want the embossing ink to go down into the leaves. Then I'm popping down a piece of paper. Then run this through my Big Shot machine just like I would any other embossing folder. And then when this comes off, I'm going to be a little bit careful because the embossing ink has transferred, but never mind, it is sticky stuff, so you're not going to probably take off any of the ink. Now that's just me popping the embossing powder on the wrong side, and then once I figure out it's the other side, I have very, very little of this gold embossing powder left, but it is my favorite and I need to purchase another one. But this is super, super gorgeous, and this way we can use all of your embossing folders and it kind of ends up looking like a background stamp, except for it has the dimension from the embossing folder, and absolutely stunning. So another way that we can use them. Now this pattern has come out clean, crisp, beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to show you this one now. This is an embossing folder called Splatter, and I do love these kind of generic backgrounds because I feel like you can add anything to these. Now I want to show you something about backgrounds like this that have some bigger designs, I guess, bigger gaps, bigger holes, bigger designs. Now this one, again, you can choose whichever side. Obviously you're going to get the reverse design depending on which side you choose, but I'm going to again come in with the embossing ink, the Forte one, and glide over pretty gently. I do a little bit of tapping, but honestly I find that the swiping motion probably gives me a better result. Now I was hoping that if I did this I would be able to gently miss getting ink in some of those bigger open splotches or splatters because some of them are relatively big, you can kind of see there on the pattern. But I want to show you what happens if you do this. Now also I think that the result we get is perfectly fine, absolutely gorgeous, but there's also an easy fix. Now I kind of had anticipated what was going to happen here, so I thought I would use my anti-static powder bag as well, just to give me the best chances. On the first one I didn't use it and it turned out absolutely gorgeous, but I am going to use it for this one, then pop my piece of paper down, pretty much just anywhere on the pattern, it doesn't really matter. Run this through just like I did before, and then for this one I was trying to toss up and decide whether I would use the sparkly gold or the silver, and I thought just to be a little bit different I would go ahead and use the silver embossing powder for this one. Now I choose to use super fine embossing powders. I think that it means I don't have to have the normal embossing powders and super fine. I find that super fine is going to cover solid images really, really well, but it also does intricate images really, really well. So I choose to get the super fine one, and that does help me out a little bit. Now I pop this over the pattern, and even though I really, really love the results, you can see here on some of these bigger splatters that the center is also coated in ink. Now I actually do like this look, so you could stop right here and this still looks gorgeous. Now of course this is splatters, so it kind of looks messy. I guess the other one is very clean and neat, and although the pattern has been transferred beautifully, so that's what we need to remember. But you can see that some of the splatters have the centers covered in embossing ink. Now if you want to keep that, that's fine. If you don't like that, all I do is come in with a little paintbrush and gently go over the centers there. It's really easy. Obviously I'm just following the design of the embossing folder, and I just gently, it comes off because there isn't too much ink in there, so it's really, really easy. I just do this with a dry paintbrush. So depending on what look you are going for. Now for this one, as I said, the finer, more intricate embossing folders tend to work better. So that is usually the opposite for most techniques, so it's good for this one. Now, these are the 2 panels. I am going to heat set these. The fun thing is that you can do this with any embossing folders. As I said, it works with the 3D ones or the normal ones. It doesn't matter, you're just going to get some different results. You should try it with all of them. I mean, the fun thing would be is that you could probably add ink to the other side of this and then do it that way as well. I mean, there are so many options from here that you are able to kind of directions you could take this in. So I thought I would just show you a couple today. I also thought I would show you how I finish off the cards, because it is one thing to create backgrounds, it is a whole other thing to actually turn them into cards. Sometimes I do feel like just creating backgrounds, and I make a few of them and I pop them aside for another day, but often I like to complete the process as often as I can, complete the process and turn them into cards. So these are gorgeous backgrounds. The embossing powder of course gives this gorgeous shine, and then here is where we're going to move forward with them. Now, I actually had a different plan for the gold one, but this little book that was sitting on my desk, my daughter has been playing with it and using some of the pages from this. It is just a little book of sort of ephemera, I guess, of butterflies. Some of them are on craft background and some of them are on a kind of creamish coloured background. Gorgeous little butterflies, and I was flicking through this and I saw the purple ones, and they were the ones that really caught my eye, and so I thought purple and gold go together beautifully, and so I think that is going to be the theme of my card today. So it was this little book that started me off down this trail. Purple is not necessarily a colour that I lean in towards. I don't know why. I tend to just be more of a blues person. I absolutely love blue. Blue is my favourite colour. And so some of these butterflies in this book are so gorgeous, and I think they could give some really, really nice inspiration. I am not even sure where I got this. I will try and link it down below if I can remember. But honestly, any ephemera, you can look around and see something that catches your eye or catches your fancy, and then that becomes the beginning of my card. So these 2 purple butterflies were absolutely gorgeous here. I'm going to pop a wee post-it note in both of these so that I can remember those pages for later. Now, I don't have many purple things. As I said, purple is not necessarily my colour. I do have some white little ribbon here, satin ribbon, and I'm going to use some of the Villainous Potion, so basically a purple Distress Oxide ink to colour this. Now, I put down some ink on a non-stick mat, but actually I felt like I needed a little bit more. So I did add a little bit of water, but then I ended up coming in with a little bit of the re-inker, and that made it nice and dark. Now, when you are going to dye your ribbons and things like that, you do want to give them some decent time to be able to dry, and then that way you won't get any of the colour running off on your hands as well. I used a glove because this process can be messy, as you can see, and it is also really helpful to do lots of ribbon at once rather than just small pieces, and I guess that way you could use up more of the ink as well. But this was a fun process. Now, I was really making sure that this ink was saturated into the ribbon. I didn't want it to be sort of a tie-dye motley between white and the purple. I wanted it just to be a solid purple ribbon. So when in doubt, we will make the colour that we need. I helped this along and began drying this. It will dry back a little bit. That's what dye inks are going to do, as well as the oxides in particular. But this worked perfectly, and now I have some purple ribbon. It kind of looks a little bit dark blue on camera, but I swear it is going to be purple. Now, with the Waffle Flower Happy Birthday, I am going to stamp out a couple of these. Any big, bold sentiments are a great thing to have in your little stash. If you just create backgrounds and you love the background, you want to show off the background, a big, bold sentiment is perfect to go on the front. That way it kind of becomes the focal point of your card, but you're not going to cover up so much of the background that you worked on. So this is kind of one of my go-to tips. If you really love the background, then a big, bold sentiment is the way to go. I stamped the bottom one in some VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and then the top one I actually stamped in some Monarch VersaFine Clear ink. Now this is a purple ink, it's a pigment ink, and it is going to stamp just beautifully. I covered these with some Clair embossing powder and then I'm going to melt them. I also surprisingly have the matching dies for these ones, which is a rarity for me, but I'm going to go ahead and die cut these out as well, and then that way I have a couple of sentiments ready to go. This kit would be a good one, the stamp set, sorry, would be a good one to stamp out lots and lots of them and have them stashed away for when I need them to. Now here is the little butterfly, and I decided to go ahead and actually put this one on my card. I'm going to fussy cut around it. It's very easy because all of the edges are relatively straight, and I'm just using my little fine tipped scissors. These are Cutter-Bee scissors, an absolute dream to work with. I have had these since I began card making and I have never sharpened them. I do have to occasionally pop some alcohol pads along them just to clean off some of the adhesive and things, but they are my perfect little fussy cutting scissors. Now all of that dyeing that ribbon just for a little bit across here, the process was really fun. I do enjoy doing these extra little things when I have the time, so for me it was worth it, but obviously having some purple ribbon handy would have been good. But I have a tiny craft space, very tiny, in the corner of my bedroom, and so I don't have the ability to kind of have everything on hand, and I like to make do with lots of things. I don't have space for storage or lots of things like that, so the things that I have in my craft room really need to be multi-use. Now all I'm doing here is popping the sentiment up on some foam tape. I have my little gorgeous butterfly and deciding where they could go. There's lots of places I could pop this, but I decided just up there on the corner would be fine. I popped a little bit of foam tape down the body, and that is going to sit perfectly just around those little letters. And then that is all I'm going to do for this one. It shows off the background gorgeously, but we have enough details that it is creating a gorgeous birthday card. Now for the second one, we're about to get colourful. This background is a fun background, and I have the other happy birthday here ready to go. For this one, I decided to pull out my Altenew watercolor brush markers. Now these are bright, vibrant, saturated inks in here. Now I must admit, when I got these, I was nervous that the ink would get used up really fast. It felt like just because the ink was so concentrated and gorgeous, I thought these pens are not going to last long at all, and they'll be a bit of a flash in the pan. However, I must admit, with all that I have used, these are doing very, very well, and most of them have got a lot, in fact all of them, have a lot of ink still left in here. So I was definitely proved wrong with these, and I think these are a good investment. They are fun to use, they blend beautifully. A good range of colours in each set. As I said, I have the Spring Garden set. So yeah, I was probably proven wrong, and I like these quite a lot. They are nice and bright though, not dull and muted at all, although if you added a little bit of colour and then tone them down with some water, I think they could be brought back just a little bit. Now I'm going to trim this down. I did end up trimming down the gold one as well, I just didn't show that on camera. So I just pick the bits that I want to trim off the edges to keep the nicest part in the center. And then at the moment, this could be relatively plain and simple. So this is where I was kind of going. I didn't want too much going on the card. I want to show off that gorgeous background. And I like this. It is very, very simple. And so I decided to go for gold. This is the point where I was kind of like, okay, we're doing it. So I took my card base. My card base is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I popped a wee paper towel in between so that I could soak up anything that may go around the edges. And I decided to go full rainbow watercolors around the edge. As I said, these blend beautifully. Now this is not watercolor cardstock. This is not perfect blending cardstock. If I was wanting to do gorgeous blending, I would probably use some of my Tim Holtz watercolor paper, but this is just how it was, and I was going to make it work. So I did use a couple of greens there. The green in the set is very light, so I add a little bit of the darker green, and I'm able to get a nice blend in between the two. And then I just am going to go around the edge and create a border. Now I know that this looks a little bit messy, and at this point you're not quite sure, but remember that the inside is going to be covered up nicely, so you're actually only going to see the gorgeous outside part. And I must admit, I thought about doing one colour only, and that probably would have looked neat too, but for this one apparently I was going full rainbow like I had with the lettering. So once I had let that dry for a few minutes, I was good to go. And again, this card is very clean and simple, maybe not clean, just simple, and but I still really like it. I like that you can see those gorgeous big splatters, and yet it's very clearly a happy birthday card. So I've done my little trick here to pull off the 4 corners of my adhesive around the back, the tabs that were hanging out the side, and that means I've lined it up nice and evenly with an even border around the outside. And I'm going to pop some foam tape on the back of my sentiment and pop that in the middle. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial on how to heat emboss with your embossing folders, another way that we can stretch our supplies. If you are interested in supporting me, I have a link to the Buy Me a Coffee. That's what I do down in the description box below here. Otherwise, I will try and link as many of the products that I've used today in case you want to check them out, or just look at the product a little bit closer that I have used today. Other than that, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you being here and watching my videos and all of this amazing support that I get from everybody. I am so grateful for our community. Anyhow, I will see you in the next video. Thanks, bye!